Today, we are going to talk about Obsidian. You are not locked into any type of vendor.
And you're like, and I've always hated it. Maybe it's my old age.
Why he's the boss and you're not.
I highly recommend everybody do it. If you want to sit there and learn something.
Hello and welcome to this Code of Character podcast. I am Ivan and I'm joined here with Bevan. And today...
Bevan, hello.
Hello, Bevan. And today we are going to talk about Obsidian, which is a popular note-taking tool, especially around tech people. Now, Bevan, have you played around with Obsidian?
I have a little bit. How do we put my experience
and
with
what
Obsidian
are your thoughts?
Yeah, I'll go into that. Thanks for asking. Because you put me onto Obsidian in this podcast. Number of episodes was, I don't know, episode 3, 4. I installed it and sort of hit the ground running a bit. First thing I did is put Vim bindings in it, because if it didn't have Vim bindings, it was going to be a deal breaker. And I was very happily surprised to see that it took Vim bindings, and then recognized that it used Markdown, which I was familiar with from my dev experience, understood what Markdown was. Quickly figured out how to create a vault, which is the repository for your notes. And that's about it, really. Kind of, I just used it as a random repository of note-taking. Didn't get much into its usability, its features, things like that. I've just been using it as a flat notes repository. And I'm keen to explore it a bit further. I very much like what I've seen so far. But I feel like I've only just scratched the surface of it. So
yeah. Well, just for people who don't know, Obsidian is a note-taking tool, as Bevan mentioned, and it is a free software. It's not open source, and this is something that a lot of people get confused about. They straight away think it's open source. It is not open source. It is closed source. It's free, and the way the company or the developers make money from it is by offering extra services on top of it. So I believe there's some publishing add-on where you can publish content and also syncing content between devices. So it's also Markdown based. That's the biggest thing about it. I personally like it because I was able to move a whole bunch of code snippets that I had built in Markdown, and I would simply edit it using, GitLab's web IDE. You just go in there and edit it using Markdown. And then when I discovered Obsidian, I just simply moved all my Markdown files to Obsidian, and it just worked. It does add in its own type of metadata occasionally in certain Markdown files, but the good thing is that if you write your content in Markdown, then at least your data is portable. You can move things around. You are not locked into any type of vendor, such as Notion, Evernote, Apple Notes, Google Keep, or whatever they are. And for me, that is the huge part about it. I still use Notion, which is a very locked-in system. I guess one of the benefits, so people will be watching this and be like, oh, what's the difference between Notion and Obsidian? Because Notion is the popular one these days. And for me personally, the biggest thing between them is, first of all, Notion, all your data is synced across straight away. They handle all the content, which is a good thing or a bad thing. If you have very sensitive data, you may not want to put it in Notion. But one thing that I do love about, that I do like about Notion now, and one of the reasons why I haven't fully moved over to Obsidian is just the interaction with media. So the way Obsidian handles media, I don't really like. I believe I can just drag and drop, take a screenshot and drag and drop it into the editor or whatever it is, and it does just upload it. But the way it then handles the media, you can configure things so that attachments get chucked into a separate folder, but then you end up with a massive folder of images. And if you're using things
slow down your sync.
Exactly. If you're, and that's exactly what I was going to mention. If you're using something like Git sync to synchronize your content, well, then that's not going to work. Like Git doesn't work well like that. Whereas if you use something like Notion, you can just drag and drop images into it, uploads it, done. So that's
Lock in.
one thing. But that's it. You are locked in. But it's the benefit. The other thing is multi-user setup. So if you have multiple users where you want to have a team of people accessing content, I don't think at this point Obsidian is the best tool. Now, somebody might come back and say,
fantastic point. Yeah.
But somebody might come back and say, oh, there's a plugin for it. Yes, but it's not easy to set up. And that's the other thing that Obsidian that you are going to struggle with at first when you use it.
Something I had not thought about like that. So it's really, as soon as you say it, it's like seems really obvious. You're like,
yeah,
I haven't used it in a team scenario, so I haven't thought of it. But now that you mention it, I'm like, hold on, yeah, exactly.
How would you? I was thinking, should you and I have used Obsidian to track episodes and manage all that type of stuff? But then it's like, oh, how do you now sync content between multiple devices, even if you have a mobile and a desktop and things like that?
Great question. Straight away, I go an individual vault in a Git repo, but then if you're syncing across all sorts of devices, and that's the interesting point from my experience, I haven't done syncing with it yet. I have
me too.
Simply used it as the desktop app, push it to Git just as a backup more than anything else. But then there are times when I do want to access notes on my phone, I just browse to GitHub and go like you said originally, right? Because you're using the web IDE and GitHub to edit.
Yeah.
So I can still edit, right? And that's where we talk about the node lock-in. Did we mention it there, how you take your data with you because it's plain text, it's portable.
Yeah. That's
got that advantage. I can still access my files without Obsidian on another device, but you lose a lot of the interface and features that it provides. But interesting. I wonder how there's at least a middle ground, but
that's why the team that built Obsidian do have a syncing service. So their syncing service, if I have a quick look, is
what I call yet another service.
Yes, I know. That's the thing. I'm trying to cut back. It's $50.
Trying to cut back on services.
Oh yeah,
like a service addiction.
So you can get the sync service for $4 a month.
Yeah, it's not expensive at all.
No, it's not.
But it is yet another service on top of.
Exactly.
Where do you go? Netflix, YouTube Premium, got my Opus clip I'm paying for, ChatGPT for $30 a month, plus, your VPS, plus your internet, plus all that up, and plus the apps on your phone for editing are like $30 a year, and you go, each one of them is inexpensive. We've talked about this before, but and I go sit in Obsidian, so I don't want to pay another service. I really don't. Yeah.
Well, my thing about paying for services, and I did post a video about this recently about the cost of SaaS prices. And of course, I get an email to say Canva's going up in price. It's pretty much doubling in price by next year.
There's another one I didn't put on my list, Canva, which I refuse to pay for it. It's so tempting.
I like to use it.
Canva's a great tool.
It's a great tool. Yeah. But the funny thing is that I have Creative Cloud, which is like everyone needs to hate Creative Cloud, of course, but I don't mind it. Creative Cloud has Adobe Express, which is their Canva competitor. And then I was like, you know what? If I'm paying for it, I'm going to start using Adobe Express because it just saves me. Like I'm already paying for it. I might as well use it. But when it comes to services, it's just yet another thing to pay, which can be very annoying. Now, there are syncing services that you can do on your own, use some type of, especially on the mobile, there are apps you can use that can sync Google Drive folders, I believe.
Then I'm trying to get out of Google Drive. But you can use Dropbox. There's one called DropSync. I think in preparation for this podcast, I did reading through the documentation, and there is in their sync, there are plugins and you can use other
a whole
apps.
bunch of them.
Yeah, they're typically, with what happens to me, is they're all designed for the things that everybody uses, which are all the things I think are poop. It's like, why can't I sync to GitLab? You can sync to Dropbox, you can sync to Microsoft One, you can sync to Google Drive, you can. Why not? Why is there no Git sync? Because why is it all the things I don't want to use? All the lock-in things.
Well, that's it. There are, you do have a bunch of options. And this is where Obsidian can get a bit tough to use, because you install it, you watch a few videos, and then you just realize that you can go down the rabbit hole and have a pretty complex setup. Because this also brings me to the next part, the plugin ecosystem, which is great. Don't get me wrong, but it can also be a bit of an issue, because then it's like, how do all these plugins work? How do I implement it? How do I do that? And that's one thing that I've really noticed over the last couple of years of using applications that are like toolboxes that help you build things. You either spend so much time optimizing the product, feeling like you're using it, but you're not using it. You're just optimizing it. Kind of like, other note-taking tools like Notion, where you can spend a lot of time wasting effort on creating the perfect database, creating the perfect properties, but you don't actually use it. And I feel like with Obsidian, I've gone through about 3 or 4 iterations where I've watched the video and I'm like, oh, this is awesome. Let me chuck everything out the window and start again.
Yeah, refactor your folder structures.
Yeah.
One of the first things I did was, start adding a bunch of tags, and it comes with the GraphView plugin in that, so you can see all the links between all your documents. And I was overwhelmed just almost straight away, because I now can see this cloud of how I link all my documents.
Yeah.
I want to tag them all. You can include the tags in your link, and you go, cool, I got this nice, pretty graph that I don't know what it tells me. It's pretty. At the same time, now I'm writing a document because trying to work on things like building a Drupal course, right? Trying to track all that. And it's like, so do I put each section of a topic into a separate document, or do I, or to keep it all in one document? Because you've got this linking, and that's the big question I've got is this, because I think Obsidian's a fantastic tool as if you just think of it simply as a markdown editor, it's amazing.
Yes.
But once you start getting into the philosophies and theories around that, there's names for these different approaches, there's different frameworks for structuring and organizing your document. So I went down the YouTube rabbit hole a bit, and it's got a bit boring, because I'm kind of, as I said to you earlier before we started this, seemingly the best organization tool I've ever really found for working not in a team, just on my own, is generally one big document with just everything in it.
Yeah.
Probably get scoped around general big areas. Like I've got a document, because we've got a document for this podcast, and so far it's worked very well. We've got a single document.
Huge Google Doc.
One huge Google Doc, yeah, and you just scan through it, and half of it never gets looked at and never read. And you don't need these fancy graphs, you don't need links, it's just and I've found that, because that's what you're talking about when you start getting into trying to organize all your notes and you spend all this time organizing your notes to what end, right? I think there's a learning in that both of us seem to. We were talking about with our content creation earlier. You mentioned it. You said you've got to do the most important stuff and let the other stuff go.
Yes.
And I think when it comes to notes, it's kind of like you don't need to keep every little thought you ever have, right? Which is what the YouTube videos seem to do. They call it a second brain, and you can put all your, and that's amazing. And there's this paradise of amazing effectiveness. And I just get straight away. I've been around long enough to have tried that so many times. I found the ultimate organization tool. Next thing you know, it's overcomplicated. It's all over the place. It's full of all these things that you put aside for 5 years, never look at again.
That's it.
And I really mean it, that the best thing that's ever worked for me is a document. One.
Yeah.
Like that's, podcast document for the course I'm building.
Yeah, that's it. That's it.
And don't organize it. Just big pile of, I often find I've been recently realizing in my journey of what I'm building and doing the work, that every single bit of work I do creates more work. And I think the same applies to this. As soon as you install Obsidian, it's like, now I've got to learn Obsidian. I've got to learn about the plugins. You install the plugin, you've got to learn that plugin. You've got to audit the plugin. Now you've got to manage all the links that plugin creates. Now, like, you're installing a plugin that makes one task easier, but it comes with 10 other tasks. This is what I imagine. I haven't played with the plugins, but that's kind of why I haven't, right? Because I just keep it simple. And even my Obsidian app is a little bit disorganized.
Yeah.
And I spend probably a lot of effort wondering about how should I organize this? How should I break my documents up? And I think it works best when you just don't think about it.
That's it.
I think
that's
from my,
pretty much,
yeah.
That's pretty much it. That is pretty much it. Now, the funny thing about you're talking about tags and the graph view and all that. I was using tags, and then I watched a whole bunch of videos where they say, don't use tags. Tags isn't a proper way. What you want to do is create a separate category page, and then you link to pages. And here is a 50-minute video on why you should do it. And I'm like, am I not going to what? It's like, then I kind of feel, oh man, my setup is crap. And this is where,
you know why I want to do that? I want to do that so I can make a video about how to do that. Right?
Well, that's it. I know. It's just,
yeah.
It just
in the real world, does it work? I mean, I've been watching a lot of Gary V, right? You think Gary V sits there and spends hours a week?
No, he pays somebody to do it.
Structure well, he does now, but I doubt when he started, he wouldn't have had time to do this shit anyway.
Yeah.
I imagine he probably had a similar series, like he probably had a document and went, right? Just write it down. It's hard to imagine a lot of people who are big, successful people who've built amazing things have spent a lot of time sitting there refining their process. They're just, when do you have time for that? Building system, because it's the world I lived in a long time. I just want to build we're developers, both of us. You tend to want to automate things and find a solution. But problems, you've said it before about developers. We're end of the day, we're problem solvers, and I hear a lot of devs talk like that. And I've always been a bit, and I don't know if that's the right. Yeah, maybe we are, but I think that's a very engineering way of looking at things.
Well, I did look. I don't know where it was, but I did see this short video where somebody says the difference between successful people and unsuccessful people isn't that they're smart, is that because they just execute. And the quote unquote smart people are like, no, I need to plan everything. I need to do this. I need to have the right Obsidian notes. I need to set up my Notion board and notes and all that. I need to plan everything out. Whereas the most successful people aren't the smartest because they're like, let's just see what sticks. Chuck stuff at the wall. Oh, okay, that's working. Okay.
Yes.
And then they get employees, and the employees are like, what's your process? I don't know. I just do it. It's in my head. You figure it out. And it's like, that's it. That is awesome. That's what I need to do. I just need to throw crap at the wall and see what sticks. And that's what I've been kind of doing.
Throw at the wall and see what sticks. Chaos.
Embrace the chaos. Embrace movement. That's kind of a...
Because I have said it before that when I've... as a developer, you tend to, and that's as a developer, you come with that problem-solving head. You want to implement systems, you want to do things. So you work for a web development agency, and you get your boss comes in, and he just comes in and goes, blah, and you're like, and I've always hated it. And then, but maybe it's my old age. Why
he's the boss.
I'm starting to go. I know he's the boss because he doesn't give a shit about doing it.
Exactly. Come on, this stuff needs to be deployed today, but we don't deploy on Fridays and the pipeline's failed. I don't give a shit. Just get it out there.
absolutely. It's funny. I'm laughing so much because it just feels this conflict between I've worn both those hats, and it's like trying to, because I was saying to you earlier, I am so busy. I am making content and trying to build a Drupal course and buying stuff to sell on eBay and trying to track all that. And I just got every job I do just results in 10 more jobs. I said that about Obsidian, Mike. I was saying, and that's so easy to get bogged down in this thing. I think it's great. And I think we're coming up with a theme here is if Obsidian's great, keep it simple.
That's it. You want to keep it simple. I wouldn't recommend that you follow. Well, if you want to spend a Friday night watching videos on how to set up the best Obsidian setup, fine.
I've made a video on that.
Yeah, I mean, you've made
Yeah.
a video about watching videos, about watching videos, about watching videos.
Yeah, pretty much. I did sit down and go through the just to say that because
I've done the same thing
and
as
it's
well.
to this point, right? Because I went, of course, we're preparing for this podcast. It gives me an opportunity to sit down and really dig into Obsidian and go through the documentation. And I guess that's going live streaming that process. I highly recommend everybody do it. If you want to sit there and learn something, just go live stream and sit there and read through the documents and figure it out live. It might be boring. I'm telling you, my Obsidian stream's getting like at least 2 views per day, right? That's not something to write home about, but I've got lots of other videos that get none, right?
Yeah.
And it's just me sitting there going through the document, and the big advantage to the live streaming is it helps you focus.
Yes.
It's so easy to get distracted, but when you're on a live stream, you're like, people are watching me, and there's no one there, but there's this psychological, and I learned a lot and got to go through this. So kind of just a little tip there, if you want to sit down and, because you said if you've got a Friday night, you want to sit down and dig into Obsidian, because that's the time, right? You go, I'm going to install Obsidian to save me time to take some notes. So you install it, and now I don't know Obsidian. I don't know what I'm doing. I've got to go read the documents. You suddenly just cost yourself, 8 hours of educational time, which I skimped on. That's why I tend to do that. I tend to learn on the fly and learn exactly what I need to get the task at hand done. My whole Drupal will eventually have been like that. I don't know everything about every module. I know the bit I needed to know. Pardon me, I've got but there is something in sitting there and then learning to take the time to go and absorb it all.
Yeah.
Right. And it's really hard to find that time when you've got competing priorities. And that's why the live streaming, at least you've got that value. You can connect with people, give the value back. You're serving other people who might be interested because everybody works differently. Like I want to sit there and focus, read through the docs. Someone else might be happy to put the video on and listen to me read the docs out. Right. It's,
Absolutely. So that's how I've got a lot of work done in the past, where it's like, I want to edit this video. Let me just live stream me doing it, because that's how I get things done. I think I've got like 8 live streams on my local channel on my personal channel of me just editing videos.
Yeah. I've done a video editing live stream.
Yeah.
And
it's like, I need to get things done. Let me just live stream it.
I get really resistant to it. It's funny what I'm learning with the live streams. I get resistant to it because it's like, really, who wants to sit there, especially when you're doing things like editing videos or trying to solve programming problems. You get these concerns about all the dead air when you're just sitting there thinking and solving a problem. And the other times when you might be, feeling vulnerable and exposed because you might sit there for an hour trying to solve a problem that's obvious to some douchebag on the other side of the camera. You're right. You don't want to get, I know I get particularly scared of someone sitting there who's going, why'd that take you an hour? I could have done it in 10 seconds kind of thing. I'm terribly, terribly scared of looking foolish and stupid.
Yeah.
But then, I did a live stream of familiarizing myself with Drupal 11, and someone came back and said, appreciate the authenticity. Hey, it's really cool to see someone who's proficient at Vim struggle at some of the basic stuff. And that's funny enough.
Yeah.
That's my biggest fear is being seen struggling with simple stuff. But it's also what my greatest desire is to expose, to let everybody else know. It's a bit off topic from Obsidian, but that's learning Obsidian's that, right? Because it's a big pile of markdown documents, which it's simple. But then there's so much to, it's one of those things I expect you'd spend hours and hours to learn all about Obsidian, to come back right to the beginning and go, oh, it's just a big pile of markdown documents, right? I've seen, but you say the plugin, I haven't really looked at the plugins at all. I've become aware of them through watching some YouTube videos.
Yeah.
Someone mentioned there's an icon pack, and that when you install that icon pack, it slows your sync down because they're all saved as images. that's why when you said the images are so slow down, you sync. That's how I knew that, because someone
Mm.
mentioned it in an icon plugin. But there's so many I imagine these plugins that take hours to learn. I just don't learn that quickly.
Well, that's it. Yeah,
And
absolutely. So I think, yeah, the summary of this podcast is, if you're looking for a note-taking tool and you want to stick to Markdown format, look at using Obsidian. Like, it is a decent tool. Okay, well, I've got nothing else to add. That's pretty much it.
organic wrap up.
Yes.
We're good. And all right.
Cool. So I guess if there are other tools people want us to review or look at, please let us know. Leave comments. I'm always on the lookout for new tools. And if you can put in a good argument to say, you should look at this tool because it does this, this, and this, I'll be like, okay, I'll give it a go.
Yeah.
All right. Cool.
Absolutely.
Well, let's wrap it up.
All right.
See you later.
See you later. Bye.